How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Paste Studio here in Midtown Manhattan, New York City. We are broadcasting to you live from the Manhattan Center, as always. And with us right now is a very special guest. All the way on my left is Meklit.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Paste. Thank you for coming.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's a real pleasure to have you. Your last album, most recent album, is called When the People Move, the Music Moves Too. And it came out in June of last year.
Yes.
And we are going to hear 3 songs from that record today.
Correct.
And I am really, really excited and pleased to see you brought your whole band, which is great. Or at least a lot of a band.
Yes.
Some of a band. And so tell me a little bit about what we're going to open up with today.
We're going to open up with a song called Yerakeh Yeresal, and it means as it grows further, it is forgotten. And it's about how we have to search for the things that are important to us. We have to reach for them again and again. We have to call them in. We have to call their name. And this is played on my kirar. It's a 6-string Ethiopian harp.
Excellent. I was going to ask. And I may ask again.
Everybody wants to know.
Yeah.
And now we're live.
Tartachu askapot, luswaze fanulat, tartachu nagarwat, in the man falagat. Tartachu askapot, uzima what a swat, the mud islet swa, yangize marucha. So become, yeah, they are bema, then get a poet all. But on be on, you can lie to but well, we're watching, and I think, whoa. Thought you ask what? Was the fanulat, tartachu nagarwat, in the man falagat, tartachu askapwat, zima what the swat, the mud college swa, yangize marucha.
Guys, thank you so much.
Why, thank you.
So now I do have to ask. I had all of these questions and topics to ask about, but now that I've seen the Karar, I can't help but ask about the use of the instrument, your beginnings with it.
Yeah.
It's got 6 strings. It looks like
Yes.
that is the end of its relationship to the guitar. There's no headstock. There's no neck on it per se.
Yeah.
How did you learn to play that a long while ago? How long have you been playing it?
I've actually been playing it for about 2 years, and
2
I
years.
learned to play it while I was on tour with the Nile Project, who did a Paste magazine session.
Yes, they did.
Quite, I think a couple of years ago now. But so it was given to me by one of the musicians on the Nile Project, and he said, give it a strum and see what happens. And then he gave me all these techniques to practice with. But it's actually totally opposite from the guitar. So on a guitar, when your left hand pushes down a string and then you strum or you pluck, the string sounds. It resounds it out. But in this case, when you lift your finger from the string,
Oh, you're
and
deadening
then
the strings with your fingers.
you're deadening the strings, and that's what gives it always that percussive. So I'm constantly playing taka-ta, taka-ta,
Yeah.
taka-ta, taka-ta, taka-ta. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds amazing. I mean, not to go too deep into the subject, but we're very nerdy here about instruments and music.
Nerds
Yeah.
are my family.
So making like chord structures with it. I mean, are there hand positions that are sort of like basic and fundamental, and you grow from there?
No, I mean there's a lot of there's 2 basic different styles. One is really about strumming and hence percussion because of the deadening of the strings, and the other is very, very plucky, and that's played with the left hand only. And that's something that I'm studying now, but I'm playing the strummy style right now.
Yeah.
I mean, what I learned while I was on the Nile Project, which I came to even more deeply than I had in my childhood, is that 5 notes are infinite.
Yeah.
Like pentatonics are just infinite. Like they go on and on and on, and they're found in so many different parts of the world, but they have such a unique iteration in Ethiopian music. But this, for example, on that song, I tune it differently. I tune the karar very differently than a traditional way.
Okay.
And I'm kind of like letting an F note is the kind of pedal note, and that lets me move between 2 Ethiopian scales. That's the music nerd side of it.
Yeah. No, that's what we love here. It's a good segue also, because I was going to ask you before we play our next song about. You've always sort of had a very diverse range of music that has been sort of incorporated into the albums that you make. But it seemed like on the most recent album, which is called "When the People Move, the Music Moves Too," more than ever, there is an infusion of Ethiopian traditional music, at least
Yes,
as
absolutely.
I heard it.
Absolutely.
And so that the karar kind of like gives me a nice little entry into that sort of topic. What was it about this record at this time that really led you down that road?
I think that the first answer is obsession, because I think that, especially after I spent all that time on the road with the Nile Project and everything, I became, and once I found that infinity inside of pentatonics and inside of Ethiopian traditional music, I just felt like there was so much to explore. But also at the core of my music, there's always been jazz and a singer-songwriter's approach and Ethiopian music. And I finally, after 10 years of trying, figured out how to bring it all together. So in my past albums, it would kind of be more like one song was more in one style and another song was more in another style.
Yeah.
And now I finally figured out how to make it all one thing. So it
Have
felt
you
very
been sort of
culmination.
searching for that, would you say, all that time? Or did you not even know until you arrived here that that's what you were trying to do?
No, I was searching for it. And I found it through groove, really,
Yeah.
through working with Ethiopian grooves and also the pentatonic scales. They're
Yeah.
so dope.
Yeah. Cool. I should mention while we're talking about it, and so I don't forget later, the Nile Project, which is a group but also an actual project,
Yes.
is a great thing. And it is basically a group of artists and activists and people who are very engaged in Africa to basically bring the nations of the Nile Basin together
Exactly. Yeah.
to talk about how best everyone can sort of share the bounty of the Nile River, because so many of these nations rely on the water.
Yeah, and also to think about the questions of what is the intersection of culture and ecology, and how are those questions relevant no matter where in the world you live.
Yeah, yeah.
And just to say one last thing about the record, When the People Move, I was really inspired to go down this path after I had this kind of epic conversation with Mulat Wastatke in 2011. So I took the band to Ethiopia in 2011 and had this conversation with Dr. Mulatu, the godfather of Ethio Jazz, the creator of Ethio Jazz. And he came to one of our shows, and afterwards he kind of took me aside and he said, "Oh, that's very nice what you're doing. But tell me, Meklit, tell me, why do you play Ethio Jazz like we played it 40 years ago?" And then he said, and he kind of was, it was so much earnestness with which he was asking me this question. And then he said, "Look, you have to find your contribution to this music. Where are you going to take this music? What can you do with this music that is uniquely your own?" He said, "That's a search, that is an experimentation process." And that conversation is really what kind of crystallized that path of searching for this combination of jazz and Ethiopian music and singer-songwriter music in a really very concrete, fundamental, like, oh, I'm walking on a path here.
Yeah, cool. So that leads us right into our next song. Tell me a little bit about what we're going to do next.
So this song is called Yesterday is a Tizita. And a Tizita is one of the most popular song forms in Ethiopia. It's songs of longing and nostalgia. And people love tizitas, you know. And I had wanted to write one in English for like a decade, but I didn't know how until the day after George Martin died, who is the Beatles producer. And I was listening to this radio program about him and his life and all of the things that he made. And they played the song Yesterday and the string arrangement that he had done. And I was like driving in my car and I pulled over and I was like, oh my God, yesterday is a tizita. It's a song of longing and nostalgia. We already know. No matter where in the world you are, you have your tizita. And then I knew how I could do it. La di do, la la, la li do di, la 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 la, la li do, la la, la li do di, la la la. A person can be a question. What if? What might have happened behind your eyes of reflection? No matter your face in your direction, there is a tizita. You just need to hear one. Your trouble, they'll be far away. I asked George Martin about it yesterday. I knew it before I pressed play. It was his tizita. Yesterday's a tizita. Yesterday's a tizita. Yesterday's a tizita. It up and it link us, whether or not we want it. You're no stranger to me, 'cause you held you to the top. We remember true, oh, we remember fog. Oh, we get the past right and we get the past wrong, and still it hits us so strong when we have our tizita. Because yesterday's a tizita. Yesterday's a tizita. Oh, yesterday's a tizita. had stayed. And what kind of Addis girl would I have made? Oh, I look back to the past. But time only goes in one way. Oh, my heart and this weight to the tar in my fatal blues. I another name for sweetness inside of the pain. Tizita is a country I left when I was young. There's unwritten history and forgotten mother tongue. Memories never made, and all this became the song, became the song, became the song.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was going to ask: you have that certain vibrato in your voice when you sing? Is that a Meklit thing, or is that an Ethiopian tradition?
They are where the two meet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely that warble, that super plaintive, emotive thing. You know, just reaches right into your chest.
Yeah. Is that something you was always in your voice when you sang?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
It was. It really was always there. But you know what they say, when something is always there, you might have learned it from your mom.
Yeah, I guess they do say that. So, I was going to ask about the record that you put out in 2017 was called When the People Move, the Music Moves Too.
Yes.
What was interesting is when I first saw that title, I thought that I had reversed it in my mind, and it said the other way around.
Yeah.
Right? And I was thinking, when the music moves as it does, the people sometimes move with it.
Yeah.
So in making this album and giving it that name, and now that it's been a few months, more than a few months, it's been almost a year since this album came out. Not quite. Yeah, 8 months.
Don't know. Yeah, 8 months.
yeah.
Not quite
All
a
right.
year.
Not
Time
quite a
hasn't
year.
moved that fast, has
right.
it?
Well, it depends on who you are and where you are.
Yeah.
I was thinking the people moving is a real thing these
Yes.
days, more than it has been in many, many years.
Yes.
And I was thinking about you in particular and what your, where your focus really is, where your vision is in terms of people moving and what they are moving for and about. And is there something, because you're not just a musician, you're a speaker. You were a student of politics, literally at Yale, a student of politics.
Yes.
So, is there something that this album for you really kind of addresses, or that you are addressing in particular that you are trying to get across for people?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for asking that question. There is I wanted to tell the story of how migration changes culture. And it's something that I think a lot about because, as you said, we're at a place of unprecedented global migration. And that, of course, is my own story. I left Ethiopia when I was 2 years old, and we went to Germany after that. And then we were in D.C. and Iowa and Brooklyn and Jacksonville, Florida, and Gainesville, Florida, and then New Haven and Seattle, and I was in London and Miami. And it's so for me, movement has always been a part of who I am. And I feel that I make the music that reflects my life, and so that's very much in it. I wanted to make a music that was an Ethiopian American music, and I wanted to make music that was so Ethiopian and yet so American that it could only have been made not only in this place, the United States, but it could only have been made at this time in history when the Ethiopian diaspora has grown so much and so many hundreds of thousands of people are now a part of the fabric of what it means to be an American person.
Yeah.
So those big themes are very much part of what I was thinking of and calling attention to and trying to turn into something we can celebrate and dance to. Like, yes, it's something we should understand with our intellects and with our political minds, but we should also understand it with our shoulders and our necks and our hips and and all of the things that make us feel joyful about life, which is really at the core like culture and human connection. I just finished making a pilot for a show called Movement, and we developed it for Jetty, which is Al Jazeera's new audio division. And it's called Movement, and it's actually looking at the story of global migration told through music. So, that was just a pilot, but that also allowed me to really dig deeper into that process, and we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, that sounds great. And for fans of American music, certainly if you just start, if you're someone who knows or likes the history of just American popular music, there's so much, I would think, material there before you even branch out into the migrations of other people around the world. So it sounds like there's a lot of material to mine.
Yes, and
for
also
that kind of thing.
And there's a lot of ways to think about who we are. And there's a lot of ways to dance to that.
Yeah, cool. So we're gonna do. You're gonna do one more from When the People Move, the Music Moves Too. Tell us a little bit about what we're going to close out with.
So we're gonna close out with a version of the Roots and Erykah Badu's tune "You Got Me," and I decided that this belonged on the record in order to pay homage to hip hop. It's very deeply American, deeply African American music, because it was like the one place where I felt seen as a young woman growing up in Brooklyn. I was like, yeah, in hip hop they would call my name, and hip hop they would call my name, and I thought, I felt so grateful to hip hop, and so we did a mashup, But first, the guitar must be tuned because the guitar is alive. Here we go.
If you are worried about where I've been or who I saw, what club I went to with my homies, baby, don't worry, you got me. Somebody told me that this planet, it was small. We used to live in the same building on the same floor. Never met until I'm over. She's on top. This Ethiopian king from Cali, doing freelance abroad, working on film, photo, flash, focus, record. Said he doing a flick, could not bend to the score. He loved my show in Paris, had a lease and one more. Then I stepped off the stage, I took a piece of his heart. If you are worried about where I've been or who I saw, what club I went to with my homies, baby, don't worry, you got me.
love I went to with my homies. Baby, don't worry, you know you got me. La 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 ting, la 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 ting, la 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 ting, lay low. La 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 ting, 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 la 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 ting, la 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 ting, la 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 ting, la 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 ting, la 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 la. Thank you so much.
Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So that was 3 songs we just heard from When the People Move, The Music Moves Too. And that is the most recent album, came out last year by Meklit. And so you are on tour. Maybe you're sort of always on tour. I'm not sure. But there's definitely a show tonight at the Apollo Theater
Yes.
here in New York, up in Harlem.
Yes.
And then I know further on, I think down the coast.
Yep. We're in Baltimore at the Motor House on Sunday, and we're at Blues Alley in DC on Monday.
All right, all of those dates everyone can find at meklitmusic.com, as well as all the information you want and music and all kinds of good stuff on the website. So find all that information there, and definitely check out When the People Move, The Music Moves Too, which is really a brilliant album. So I want to really thank you guys, everybody, for coming to the studio and playing for us today.
Can I introduce the guys real
please,
quick?
Yes, please do.
This is Sam Bevan on bass, Colin Douglas on drums, and Marco Peris Coppola on the tapan and percussion.
Well, guys, thank you so much for coming and playing this music for us today.
Thank
and
you.
Have a great show tonight, and please come back and play Paste again anytime, all right?
Thank you, Matt.
Okay.